I am delighted to be here with all of you. Thank you for your attention. I want to once again call your attention to the mission, the vision, the purpose of the Natural Learning Initiative. And it's just so important, that whole notion of creating healthy environments for healthy human development and a healthy biosphere for generations to come. And so what I'll be talking about is that combination, why the connection with nature is so important for everyone's health and well-being. So when Nilda and Robin asked me to talk about this today, the global perspective, they knew that I was just going to return 1 week ago from the World Conservation Congress. Those congresses are held every 4 years. The International Union for Conservation of Nature was founded in 1948. It's made up right now of about 170 nations. There are about 1,700, almost actually 2,000 non-governmental organizations that are members of it. It takes persistence and patience at the international level to be working in this arena. It's almost 20 years for me that I've been a member of the steering committee for one of the commissions, the Commission on Education and Communication. So this Congress, this most recent Congress, the first of them that I went to was in 2008, and I would tell you that it was momentous at that time to be able to get language in the governing structure of the organization. They operate by motions that are passed in the General Assembly at each of these World Congresses. In 2008, we actually got language in to talk about the importance of connecting people of all ages with nature. But that was a big deal to get that language into a resolution or a motion there, because a lot of the scientists who make up this membership are afraid that people will harm the environment. You know, they're worried about degradation of habitats. They're worried about species loss, that kind of thing. So now, in 2025, we made some real progress. The Congress was held in Abu Dhabi, so a long way away from here. But at any rate, you're going to see, this is a picture of the current steering committee of the Commission on Education and Communication, a few of the 2,000 members of that commission in one of the pavilions there. This is the first ever, that little image in the front left, top left, is the first time we've ever had a nature-based education pavilion at this World Congress. So that's an indicator of progress that we're making. I wanted to summarize a few of the points that Kathy Jordan made. Kathy and I first met probably in 2013 when she became the Director of Research for the Children in Nature Network. When Richard Lube and I founded the network with other people in 2006, one of the first things we did is assemble research and to try to have people have an understanding of the importance of the nature connection for people and certainly for children's healthy development. And then over time, it became even more clear how important that was to care for the earth. So these are a couple of statements that are actually fully consistent with what Kathy reported in more detail a few minutes ago, but I want you to hold on these thoughts. The whole notion of happier, healthier, and smart, that well-being is enhanced. That the importance of connecting people of all ages with nature, but especially in childhood, who are the people who tend to take action to care for the earth, the social experiences. When we think about the care for the biosphere for generations to come, knowledge alone isn't enough. We have to have this emotional connection. And so the experiences we're looking for in childhood and for people of all ages need to be meaningful in some way. And so just hold that thought as something that's important. Knowledge enough is not going to create the kind of difference that we want for a healthy planet now and in the future, and for healthy lives for all of us. This word connectedness that I consider to be kind of clunky, it is really out there in the literature, in the research, as the most important factor in what it is that has people take action to care for the earth. So I'll say a few more things about that in a moment. So pulling it all together, when we have these meaningful experiences, we tend to then take the kind of action to care for it that matters. So having looked at the research, when Richard Loeb and I, and again others, founded the Children in Nature Network in 2006, we knew we had to have an evidence base to stand on. So we pulled together the research at that time and published our first annotated bibliography in 2007. As years went on, and I got more and more, as I have been all my life really, but more and more concerned about planetary conditions, we tried to figure out and make it more clear to all of us what is it that has people take action. And so in 2018, we launched this comprehensive synthesis of the research today to indicate what it is that has people take action to care for the earth. Well, that was 2018 that we first published that. That was a publication really involving the Commission on Education and Communication for the IUCN in partnership with the Children in Nature Network. We are updating that research now, but we've got researchers throughout the world who are working with us. The first synthesis, published again in 2018, more than 60 nations helped us to write this. And we decided to put it into 2026, and there are, it turns out, really good reasons that we'll be doing this in 2026. These are some of the good reasons. As I and others got ready for the World Conservation Congress in Abu Dhabi in 2025, we began to pull together a variety of new publications that could help us with this Children and Nature movement and Nature for All movement worldwide. So each of the publications are important, and they will all be free and downloadable on multiple websites, including that of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. One of them, near and dear to the Children in Nature Network, is the one, 10 Steps to Greening School Grounds and Nature-Based Education. The subtitle is a global framework for municipalities and organizations working across systems. This is a wonderful, wonderful publication that includes photographs and design ideas literally from around the world. When we talk about how to make change in cities, how do we make change in urbanizing environments, these is very practical 10 steps that people can be engaged with in order to succeed in them. Another of them is one specific to nature-based education. We Are Nature, Nature-Based Education. One that I wrote is a guide to nature-based leadership, an ecological approach. And I cite that because, as Robin was beginning to mention, from an organizational development point of view, I've always looked to nature as the guide. It really is the notion that we're all in this together. So those publications are all coming forward, and all of them are being officially published by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And the reason we went to all the labor and effort to work with that, again, relatively stuffy organization, I would say, it took quite a bit of time to work with them to get this a peer review process, all the things that go into that. But at any rate, one reason we did it is in order to make them internationally available to help create greater awareness from a combination of evidence to practical strategies. So look for those. So back to how important this time is and the changes I see in the international community. This is an incredibly opportune time. And I will also say, in so many parts of the world, including here in the United States, with a lot of polarization, with a lot of strife, with a lot of things to be concerned about, I want you to know how heartened I am in the progress and the sense of community to work on this issue of connecting people of all ages and all life experiences, including traditional ecological knowledge, by the way, including indigenous wisdom, all of this coming together at a time to say, we need to do this and we'll all benefit. And there is so much momentum. It's exciting. This is language from the new plan approved by the International Union for Conservation of Nature in Abu Dhabi. They published and approved a number of things, more than 130 motions, one of which I'll emphasize in a minute, but a plan for the next 20 years and a very specific plan, a program of work for the next 4 years. The IUCN website, International Union for Conservation in Nature, is just IUCN.org. So it will be easy for you to find these publications. But I wanted you to see, by 2045, we see a new role. This is for the International Union for Conservation in Nature in advancing education and awareness. Nature-based education is a point of entry. But I want you to know, nature-based education has only emerged as a priority of IUCN so explicitly in the last couple of years. For me, working on it for a very long time, it's really heartening to see this movement. So, one of the concepts that's fundamental to the International Union for Conservation of Nature is something that's important. That's the idea of nature-based solutions. And so that's been a framework for the work of NLI. It's part of the foundation for IUCN. And so broadly, nature-based education, it sounds like just another term, but some of the big ideas that are involved is the whole notion that nature itself really is at the heart or the center of learning, that it's holistic, that it includes a number of different things that are important now, whether it's climate education or biodiversity education. One for Peter Gray, who you'll hear from very, very quickly, but it embraces creativity and the wild play. It really is an effort to most naturally and authentically embrace who we are. A number of events, even in the last 5 years, have helped to create this momentum at this moment in time. So I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. One of those was last year, 2024, a Brazilian nonprofit organization, Alana Institute, hosted what, to my knowledge, is the first nature-based education summit. And they did so at UCLA, then California, in the United States. And so it was the first nature-based education summit. Co-founder of the Children in Nature Network, Richard Liu, was among the speakers. I was there along with others. But that's the first conference, an international conference in the U.S. that used the language of nature-based education so visibly. So that was an important one. And we had a joint meeting of many of the steering committee members for the International Union for the Conservation of Nature at that time. And very recently, this September, Kathy Jordan and I and Dr. Matteo Busti, who she mentioned, and others were in Salzburg in Austria, and we focused in even more depth on what is it the world needs now in terms of nature-based education. And a declaration is coming out from this summit that will be available actually very soon. These are a few of the draft ideas from that declaration that was in September. But how we can expand nature-based education, what are some of the guiding principles through imagination and agency, by building nature into transformed education systems. Kathy emphasized the idea of systemic change, transformational change. This agrees with that we need to partner with educators and others. One of the easiest, most accessible ways to do it is the greening of school grounds. That is, making our school environments, as Robin did so many decades ago when you transformed the school grounds at the school in Berkeley, California, and, dug up the asphalt and planted plants and created gardens. All of that, was so innovative at the time. And finally, more and more people are understanding how accessible and how important that is. So the greening school grounds is one important part of this strategy, but also by respecting and honoring traditional ecological knowledge throughout the world and the indigenous wisdom. Thankfully, I'm seeing much more attention to that, including in the international assemblies that I'm a part of. I've seen much more respect for women and indigenous cultures and a variety of others in these international tribunals. But certainly as a part of nature-based education, traditional ecological knowledge needs to be an embedded part of all of that. And then the whole notion about measuring what we're doing. It's still the case that in order to affect change, many people need to see data. They need to see, really legitimate, credible evidence. And so there is movement to do that as well. Another important milestone is actually going to be this World Environmental Education Congress in Perth, Australia. I know will be another important part of the widespread worldwide understanding of the importance of nature-based education. And what is most unique about this congress, and in particular, or this conference, is how authentic the collaboration between traditional peoples of Australia. It's going to be a very significant conference. The Commission on Education and Communication and IUCN will be a part of that as well. And another part of what's going on, there was a call for creating a global plan of action on nature-based education. It was approved in Montreal 3 years ago, I think. But at any rate, it will be finalized also in 2026 in October. So all of these things are examples of the momentum that I've been feeling and tracking now for a really long time. Kathy mentioned again the work of Dr. Matteo Giusti, and I include this sort of diagram of his because it reinforces a lot of what we're helping to socialize and make more familiar to people throughout the world, that it's not enough just to talk about nature or to be outdoors learning in nature. We need to have much more empathy for natural systems in order to create the kind of health and healing we need for ourselves, for our families, for organizations, and for the planet itself. And so Matteo has created this kind of diagram of the elements that are involved with all of that. This is another diagram that talks about the many ways that we can bring to life nature-based education, including more traditional language around the approach to it. So environmental education would be here. Place-based education is included here. Outdoor education. But also the fact that nature-based education honors the needs of children and people of all ages for the social and emotional nurturing that's needed, with a high emphasis on experiential learning being a part of it. Anyway, these are just examples of the many kinds of approaches to nature-based education. We just want to make sure that it's happening, is that it connects people with nature, and we can use any numbers of words to make that point. At the World Congress in Abu Dhabi, at the conclusion of it, it was announced a new geo-portal for nature-based education. What does that mean? So the IUCN, specifically the Commission on Education and Communication, for which I serve on the steering committee and had for most of the last 20 years now as a volunteer, we have partnered with the organization ESRI, and you may or may not know who they are, but they're international, they're huge, and it's Environmental Systems Research Institute is what the acronym actually stands for. But things like iNaturalist are a part of it. All the data sets where you see things like the maps of the world, and then you can overlay topography, and you can overlay watersheds, and you can overlay population, and you can overlay economics, and you can overlay crime. These are among the resources that this organization, ESRI, has to bring to bear to this partnership in creating a new internet-based place where we can get all kinds of information that are helpful from an educational and a policy point of view. We've started it. It will be being developed in the next year. But what I've been looking for, and many have been looking for a long time, is a place to go to find the best of the research, but for teachers to find actually lesson plans and videos and instructional guides, all in one place to make it easy. But at the same time, this website will link to other organizations like the Natural Learning Initiative. It will link to and provide materials actually at the site, but also access to many, many other resources in the world. Related to that, though, you can't just have a website, so we're looking for networks of people throughout the world who will help implement, nourish, and disseminate nature-based education. So think of one of our colleagues, Luis Camargo from Colombia, has coined this idea of a mycelial network so that we're all connected, even in ways we don't always see. So here, this is an invitation to participate in this. I'd be happy to create more connections for you. I didn't put my email address here, but I'm as simple as Cheryl, Cheryl, at the same childrenandnature.org email address, Cheryl at childrenandnature.org. Let me mention one other thing, and that is that one of the motions passed at the World Congress in Abu Dhabi was one on the importance of research related to the human and nature connectedness concept. And so the whole General Assembly of IUCN has really finally gotten it to the point that they formalized this commitment to enhancing the human and nature connection. They're saying, yes, this is important. We want to help disseminate this worldwide, but we also want to help you measure it. So the member nations of the world approved this motion that said they would help contribute to trying to figure out the kinds of measurements that, again, Kathy cited as a part of her recommendations in closing her comments today. And with that, I'll close my comments and open it up for questions. But thank